All right, so it has been a couple of months, I believe, since I did my first 2022 NFL mock draft. If I recall correctly, it was sometime right after this past NFL draft happened. Keep me honest there if that's not true, but I believe that to be the case. Either way, we're still incredibly early in the 2022 NFL draft process. You can sit there and say, fuck you, Jeff. Why would you even bother doing this so early? And I totally get and I totally understand. But frankly, it is July. It's always a slow time of year when it comes to this channel, slow time of year when it comes to sports content in general. Although the Olympics starting later this week will certainly give us something to talk about. But in general, like looking for stuff to talk about, and I start to I start to kind of glance over to what's to come in the future, and that is, of course, the NFL draft. So I did decide to go ahead and put together this mock. You can check out all the picks 1 through 32 in the description box down below. Let me say this first and foremost, in the interest of full disclosure, for those of you that are hopefully still listening. This is not any belief or prediction about who's going to finish with what record or where they're going to finish. It doesn't matter. Who gives a crap? Every time you do one of these before season even starts, well, this team got to fish here and that team got to fish here. I don't give a shit. We don't care. I'm basing it off of the current Super Bowl odds to eliminate bias. Like, just go off of the odds. Those are already established. Whether I agree with them or not is something entirely different, yes. But it feels like I've always got to say this with these mock drafts that are so early in the process. Everybody gets so focused on who fucking cares. It doesn't matter. Just using it as a way to avoid any personal biases of what I think, or like just go off the Super Bowl odds is a place to start. And also factoring in a couple of different teams that are not going to have first round picks because of different trades that they're made. So you're going to have some teams like Philadelphia is going to be really, really well positioned. The New York Giants are going to be pretty well positioned as well. The New York Jets also with multiple first round picks. Detroit also with multiple first-round picks. So there's some teams that, you know, will be in a position potentially of real power come next year's NFL draft. Now, I will say this, is that you look at this mock draft, to me, if anything else, this is less a reflection of where you think players are going to end up in 9+ months. It's more of a reflection maybe of talent, maybe more of a reflection of depth or quality of talent in this draft at different positions and so forth. The early vibe that I'm getting from this draft is when you look at the quarterback position first. Now, obviously, I've got a total of 5 quarterbacks going in the first round. I've got Spencer Rattler going 1 to Houston, Malik Willis going 2 to Detroit, Sam Howell going 6 to Philadelphia, Carson Strong 14 to Nevada, and then Desmond Ridder going 24 to Denver. Those are the 5 quarterbacks that I put in there. Is that potentially going to change? Yes. Could there be more quarterbacks than 5 that get drafted in the first round next year? Yes. Could there be fewer? Yes. Like, this is going to be a really interesting class because when I've gone through and done some of the scouting reports of some of these guys, which I've done scouting reports on Rattler and Willis and Howell and Strong and Ridder, and you should check those out on this channel, absolutely. Now, a couple of things stand out to me. A lot of guys that are 6'2" or under, and more in the under category. So it almost feels like it's a position group of munchkins. Doesn't that fair or not? Like, I'm just saying, that's the reality of it. And I don't know that any one of these guys has so massively jumped off the charts that I just feel 100% confident that I would take them in the first round with the top pick. Some of them, yes, I would absolutely feel comfortable with spending and burning a first-round pick on them, but top of the draft, I think there are guys that have potential, and I'm reflecting some of that potential in where guys like Rattler and Willis and even Howell are slated, but these guys have some flaws or some things to really work through, so I'll be very curious to see how this plays out. You'll notice names like Corral aren't there and Slovis isn't there, because right now when I look at JT Daniels, because they're not good enough prospects. Like, seriously, I don't know why people are hyping those guys up. At this point, as it stands, you cannot go back and look at what they did in 2020 and say to yourself, that's what a future first-round pick NFL franchise quarterback looks like. That's crazy talk. No way. Based off of the 2021 performance, could that change? Absolutely. But based off of 2020, absolutely not. So this quarterback class could potentially be incredibly deep, loaded even, to the point where you could see damn near a record number of quarterbacks go in round 1, or you see several guys drafted in rounds 2 or 3 that could end up being quality NFL starters. Or this could be a class where maybe 1 or 2 guys stand out and you're reaching on a bunch of these other dudes. A lot of things can change in the months to come. One thing I feel good about, though, is that this edge rusher class, headlined by Kayvon Thibodeaux from Oregon, is a pretty good one. Like, I didn't even have Aiden Hutchinson as a first-round pick, but that was more just like some team needs, some other things, like trying to balance out my draft board. But this edge rusher class appears to be pretty good. So if you're going to be a team that's looking for an impact edge rusher, you should be able to find one in this draft. The corner class is also going to be pretty good the way it looks right now. Like, I've got Derek Stingley going in the top 5. Stingley Jr. from LSU. I think this is something we've been waiting for 3 years, like assuming that he'll be a top 10, top 5 pick when he finally declares. But Ahmad Gardner I like quite a bit. Kaiir Elam from Florida. Like, it looks like I've got a total of 5 corners going here in round 1, and could be more with some actual first-round talent. So, you know, as the league goes more offensive, this draft appears to be better coming up on the defensive side of the ball. The running back class, I will say, at least at the top, with guys like Spiller and Breece Hall, looks like it could have a couple of really notable guys. The wide receiver class, I don't know that anybody truly, stands out ahead of the crowd at this point. Like, there are any number of guys, from the Treylon Burkses to the Justyn Rosses and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and so forth. Like, there are several of these wide receivers that if you pointed to me and said, by the time we get to the 2022 draft, I think that guy's going to be wide receiver 1. Honestly, I wouldn't disagree with you, because I just don't know. I don't know, like I said, at this point, that any one of them really stands out as a cut above the rest, at least at this point. Looks like another solid offensive line class. I'd say solid. Right now, Neal's probably the headliner in terms of offensive linemen, but again, we've got a whole season to go, so who knows how that's going to work out. But when I look at this, that's my early thoughts. Quarterback, I'm not sold on this class yet. I could come back 6 months from now and I'm sitting there beating the table for how great these quarterbacks are and da-da-da-da-da. That is certainly possible. It's also possible that some of the quarterbacks that I listed here in this first round won't be there. In fact, I probably guarantee that that's going to be the case, because that's just the nature of the beast. That's the reality. I can remember a few years back, you would look at mock drafts that had guys like Cardale Jones, Connor Cook, and Christian Hackenberg as the top couple of quarterbacks drafted, and it ended up being Jared Goff and Carson Wentz that were the first quarterbacks drafted. The point being is shit can change and the dynamics can change. Now, if you told me like a JT Daniels is going to be a first-round pick, I'd say based off of what? If you said a Matt Corral, I'd say based off of what? Slovis, I'd say, ooh, really? Based off of what? Like, some of you, if you feel like I've been wrong in some of my scouting reports and you've checked them out and you've disagreed with some of the things I've said about some of these quarterbacks, feel free to put me on blast in the comments. Like, talk about why you don't like what I've said, or why you disagree with me, or maybe why you have agreed with me. If you were sitting there right now and you're the Houston Texans, like, are you assuming Deshaun Watson is never going to play for the team again? If so, and you trade him away, like, you would assume that will bring you back some first-round picks in return, so Houston could also be in a position of power. But if you were the Houston Texans and you ended up with the number 1 overall pick, you have to take a quarterback, right? You have to start over, don't you? If that's the case, then which quarterback would you, at this moment, as it stands right now, who is the one quarterback, if you're the Houston Texans organization, that you said, we want to draft this guy because he'll make us at least somewhat forget about Deshaun Watson? If you were in their spot, who would it be? Obviously, if the Detroit Lions are picking second, like Jared Goff, my ass, you're drafting a quarterback. Lions fans, if your team ended up in this position, which, by the way, I don't buy that they will, but if they did, and they were drafting either first or second, who's the quarterback that you would want? Who's the guy that you think would be best equipped to be a franchise player for you guys? Again, let me know in the comments section. But let me know what you think of this mock draft. Blast away. Please don't bitch about where teams are picking, because we already talked about that. But I know some of you don't listen, and you will anyways. And it's whatever. I should expect it at this point. All right. Follow me on Twitter. Smash that subscribe button. I'm out.